we are going to do this full setting building thing, fully player facing, which means that we have to build the setting in the order that the player sees the setting, and before the game actually starts, of course, you have to create a character. And the way you create a character is by choosing your race first. The book says you choose your race first. I mean, I always pick my class first, but then I always have to write the racial stuff in before the class stuff. Why do we do it that way? Either way, it's pretty straightforward. You pick your race first. So, over the next chunk of episodes, I'm going to go through race by race and say what each race is in the setting and what they are like and what their homeland means and other assorted thoughts about any given character option there. We'll get to classes, and classes will be fun for me to think about, but there are probably more handles and more setting bits and ideas in the race section anyhow, so it's good to start there. So we're just going to fire this off alphabetically with Dwarfs. Dwarves? How did Tolkien spell it? I don't care. Dwarves with a V. Let's do that. And so, what is a dwarf kingdom? Well, dwarves live in mountains, right? That's what they do. And because I'm me, and as much as the MST3K mantra is part of my life, I cannot just look at a setting and say, but, and ignore the question that always comes to me. It's like, but what do they eat? So, yes, dwarves live in and on and around mountains. So, in this setting that I'm not going to name because names are hard, the Dwarf Kingdom, which will also not have a name, it's just Dwarf Kingdom for now, is going to be in a river valley. Both sides deep in the mountains. And we're going to steal a lot of ideas from Dragon Age and also Terry Pratchett because, you know, those are fun ideas. Those two sets have fun ideas about dwarves. So, the ruling class, so I want dwarfs to have a caste-based society, that your clan is also your job. And so you wake up and you're a farmer and you have a gritty little farm in the foothills that's really nicely ordered, and maybe it's a bit like the old French seigneurial system, so your land backs into the river so you can water it, but it's nice, rigid little boxes with strict crop rotation schedules. And, you know, they farm hardy root vegetables and scraggly, harsh grains and goats. And possibly some sort of cave lizard thing that fills the same role as chicken. Yeah, some sort of cave lizard that is functionally their equivalent to chicken. And that's it. I think the book mentions a lot about clans, and I like clans, and I like the idea, to steal from Dragon Age, that every clan has some sort of primogenitor, that, you know, you trace your line back to a heroic ancestor, like Greece, like Dragon Age or ancient Greece. And so you go all the way back in the family tree, and there's Jaster Stonecleaver, the greatest stone cleaver that ever was. He was a heroic mason, and everyone is in his way. Everyone in the family is now in masonry or architecture, and that is it. That is how they work. You do that. And I don't want to say intercaste marriage is impossible, just sort of unusual and frowned upon, and any child of, you know, mixed caste parentage would, you know, not get to choose. They get to state a preference, but it's very clear that, you know, the assorted uncles and grandparents all get together and look at him. It's like, well, this fellow, he's got a head for numbers, and look at his shoulders. No, he'll be a mason, not a farmer. He'll do that, and you're stuck now. You take the clan name of the mason side, and that'll be it. Unless, of course, you don't like that, and then you go off adventure in human lands, and it's like, well, that's a shame, kid. And this is where adventurers come from. Guys who don't fit in, leaving. Or exiles. Or being exiled. Exile is the harshest punishment dwarves offer. They exile a lot of people. We'll say that. And there's a degree, getting back to this idea of the primogenitor, there's sort of a hero cult aspect to it. Not that you can be a cleric to your ancestor, but maybe a paladin whose oath reflects the ancestor's values or the ancestor's story. And the stories are pretty heavily mythologized. Like if if I was writing the book, I'd have a sidebar with an in-setting note from a gnomish historian. Yeah, that's how sidebars go. That's how you sidebar. Wow. I talk with my hands, don't I? But I have a note from a gnomish scholar explaining that, yes, of course we must take all dwarf myths of the primogenitors as absolute truth, even if it says that, Horbeck boat murder was at the Battle of Three Clans, fighting for all three clans at once. All dwarf stories are true, as far as they're concerned, even when they're not true, or can't possibly be true. But that's how myth works, I guess. And dwarf gods. Dwarf gods, there's a definite pantheism there. Definitely want them to have a full pantheon. And it's, well, if you're a warrior, you worship the warrior god. And dwarves are super practical about all this. That, the warrior god is just called the warrior in dwarvish. And that's who you worship, and that's how you get your cleric domains. Presumably, there's an all-father figure, because we're going to steal from Odin, because Odin is cool, and a jerk, but cool. And what else do we need to put handles on for players? What else do players need to know? Dwarves are, of course, Scottish, and stubborn, and hard drinking, because they have a racial feature that makes them resistant to poison damage. Because that's how I've always interpreted it. I don't know if the book's ever said, oh yeah, alcohol counts as poison. It gives you fatigue and confusion or reduces your dex. But that's how I've always said it. So if your character class gives you immunity to poison, you can't get drunk no more. That's just how it is. Sorry, druids. And monks. And yeah, dwarf beer. Dwarf beer, because we've established that they do have farmers and don't just live off of lichens, that dwarf beer is very much, they don't have the Bavarian purity law, and it's a hard scrabble weird mash of barley and rye and elderberries and like bog myrtle and, other things you can find. If it's fermentable, dwarf brewers will throw it in the mash, and then I'm going to say they do something like lambics, where they blend, part of an aged batch with the new batch, just to even out the flavor of both. And it's super strong and super dark and kind of sticky. It's important to know what your players go drink. They don't need to know the history of the Dwarf Kingdom, except that their current king is, of course, got a weird name, and that their homes are, they have low ceilings, and the farmers tend to live in basements. That the first floor of the house is actually cut into the ground, so it looks like the home is only 3 feet tall until you get down the front stairs, and then it's like, oh, this is still like, yeah. And I want there to be, I'm not going to outline all this, but I want there to be a particular story and a particular story to everything dwarves do, so that like dwarf ceilings are uniformly, 6 foot 1.5 inches tall. That's how long, that's floor to ceiling distance in every dwarf home and tunnels, because King Horbeck the Tall, that was what was comfortable for him to swing an overhand one-handed hammer with. That's all he needed. Why would you need anything else? It's perfectly fine, and that's always it. There's a story, and it comes back to some important dwarf. And if you think you're more important than that important dwarf, well, we'll exile you eventually. And yeah, no, let's say, we're talking about high-level players. Eventually, no, the Dwarf King says, no, you actually matter. You are important. You're a 15th level fighter. You're now the head of a new clan in the warrior caste. All your kids get to keep a brand new last name we're going to make up for you. Or you should make it up. Or a cleric will help you make it up. And that'll be that. And go talk to the bard, and he'll write down all your stories and make you sound cool. And yeah, no, definitely a caste-based society, and the ruling caste lives on the deepest levels of the mountain, and they never see daylight. So, the paler a dwarf is, the more important he is. And do dwarf women have beards? I let the player call that, I'm gonna say. I mean, it's funny to say that, oh yes, all dwarf women have beards, and all half-orc women have chest hair, but no, hang that on the player. Because ultimately, that's their golden box. The character sheet and character description is theirs, and they get so little. Let them say that. What other dwarf society things do we need to keep track of? Religion, politics. Oh, I guess politics. Yeah, no, it's definitely monarchical, not necessarily patriarchal, but the ruling class has been in place for a very long time, and succession is, let's steal from Scotland. It's the king looks at all his relations and says, yeah, this one nephew or this particular second cousin seems to be the one with his head straightest on, or yeah, no, this is a judgment call. The king names his successor, and it's probably out of someone in his family, and he may consult, religious figures, but it's definitely the case that the king names his successor based on his own judgment, not a strict, oh, well, your oldest kid has to succeed you. No, let's make this something of a judgment call, because that's interesting, because I like Macbeth. The idea that, you pick the wrong nephew and everyone gets mad at you that's a good story thing. That's got handles on it. And I mean, as much as I said the Dwarf Kingdom is a river valley, I'll also say that there are smaller Dwarf Kingdoms scattered about anywhere a mountain happens. Like they sprung from the earth whole cloth in the dawn times. And probably they did. Dwarf God was like, the Allfather was like, oh, anywhere where there are rocks piled high enough, dwarves will spring from the ground whole cloth, and they will live there and farm goats and dig holes for gold, and hopefully that doesn't get them into trouble. Do dwarf holes intersect with the Underdark? Because I like the Underdark. Not like as a full subcontinent or Hollow Earth idea. Actually, no. Full subcontinent / Hollow Earth thing. Hollow Earth, yes. The Underdark is also a Hollow Earth. And that if you dig down hard enough, you find the Underdark, which is super messed up and full of badness. And do dwarf holes intersect with it? No, except when they do. If they dig too deep, you get a problem. That's how you get drow infestations. You dig too deep and there's drow, and then you gotta plug that hole, and you maybe have to ask for help. Or you don't ask for help. You don't ask for help, because you're dwarves and you can do it yourselves. Allfather, dang it. That's how it works. You throw your men into this problem, and hopefully you can seal it back up. And hopefully the dwarves, the drow, or whatever. What else lives in the Underdark? All sorts of crazy badness. Illithids. Yeah, illithids. That's how you get illithids. And illithids maybe summon demons, and then some wizard has to fall off a cliff to help you fight the demons. Yeah. I don't think I have anything else. Those are my first immediate brainstorms of what a dwarf is. And if we gotta own the tropes, so they're all angry Scotsmen. Oh, they don't like riding animals because an animal that can carry a dwarf would be better served carrying cargo. And they're fine. They're beginning to accept travel by water. That's it. Like long-range mercantilism is new to dwarves, and the merchant caste is new and weird, and the idea of sending a barge full of your stuff down the river is still, like, it's still something they're thinking about. It's like, yeah, no, I mean, we send a barge full of refined ore down the river, and then the guy comes back with gold, and it's as shiny as our gold, so I guess that's fine. But we're still not so sure on this. Not so sure. And it has nothing to do with the fact that they're afraid of water. They just have a healthy respect for water. Because the water you find underground's bad for you. Why would the water on the surface be different? Also, they're pretty heavily industrialized. They're probably dumping slag in there. That's probably not safe. You should boil that with rye and barley and also elderberries and these hops we imported with the gold we bought. Yeah, no, that's it. What are there other dwarf stereotypes I should tackle? They hate elves. Okay, elves is next week, and I've got a lot of ideas about elves, because there are things about elves that trip things I like in settings, so I'll parse through that. But do they hate elves? And they don't hate them. They just, the contrasts are very sharp in elfdom and dwarfdom, and so it's a big hurdle for them these days. Does anything I say made sense? I hope so. Alright, I'm almost out of beer, which is a good measure of me rambling about D&D. I'm almost out of beer, so I should stop talking. So, kick around for another week when we will tackle elves. In the meantime, go forth in the name of the Allfather, and also like, share, and subscribe. Leave comments if there are things you want me to follow up on. I will do follow-up episodes or Q&A things in the future. Until then, good day, roll well.